You've read 15 mock drafts by now. You've simulated 18 mock drafts by now. But have you watched a live mock draft in process? That's what's happening next with Fran Duffy and myself on the PHLY Eagles Show. It's Tuesday. The NFL draft is 2 days away, and we're ready to mock the draft. That's Fran Duffy. I'm Zach Berman. There is so much to discuss today. This is a show that I'm looking forward to. Fran, I was just with you for the All City, for the PHLY draft show. The reason I hesitated there is because this is the PHLY Eagles Show. We are brought to you by TrueMark Financial. I was just with you for the PHLY draft show where we answered questions. So I have your draft takes as an appetizer here. But how are you feeling now, 2 days out from the real thing?
I'm excited. You know, the lead up, I always say that, all right, you know, I'm going to try and cram a few guys that I haven't gotten to yet. You know, who are some players that kind of slipped through the cracks? I'm going to be honest. The last like few days leading up, it's so much like on the phone, through text, trying to gather information, what's going on around the league, what are people saying. A few years ago, like that version of Fran Duffy maybe wasn't as into it. I love it now. The whole like connecting the dots process, going through exercises like this, laying out different scenarios. It's a lot of, yeah, but what if this happens? And then yes, and then and this and that. It's a lot of fun. And we'll lay out one scenario here in this episode.
Who's the last player you watched?
I watched yesterday. Who was it? It was someone that was in on a 30 visit for one of our All City Network teams. I've been trying to get through as many of those guys as possible. Who was it? Oh, you know what I did? I did the corner, Justin Walley, who was reportedly in for a visit with the Eagles. So from Minnesota, missed opportunity on my part, by the way, to not make the like Walley jokes. You know. Very robotic, but natural feel out in space. You know, we can start getting into all the different Walley jokes that we can make there. But I thought he was a nice backup corner. I wasn't like moved by him from an athletic standpoint and upside, but a 3.5-year starter at Minnesota, pretty good ball skills, competitive player, inside out versatility. I like Justin Walley.
If you had Justin Walley discussion in the first 3 minutes of the show today, you just hit the jackpot. But you're going to hit the jackpot with this mock draft today. By the way, we are thinking of Bo Wolf and his family. We will be seeing Bo for the draft in 2 days. That's going to be a highlight. The premise of today's show, or as Bo would say, the conceit of today's show is we're doing a mock draft, but everyone does mock drafts. What I'm fascinated by is the live dynamic mock draft with more than one person. And the reason I frame it that way is I've done mock drafts for the past 13 years, and I admit I manipulate it. I try to get
Zach.
it. There's like, I'm like, you know what? I don't feel great about 13, but I'm confident about 16. So I'm going to make sure that I get this player to 16.
You can't do it that way.
So that's, or like I'm trying, if I'm mocking something for the Eagles, right? Because I cover the Eagles. I'll make it such that this player falls to the Eagles. So it's a nice, clean mock. I look good that way, right? But what you don't account for, and I should say teams do this in their draft rooms.
Yes.
They do these mock drafts. But what you can't account for is the Oakland Raiders, and they were the Oakland Raiders at the time, taking Cleveland Farrell and throwing everything off.
Yes, correct.
Is the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Blake Bortles, and then everything that happens thereafter is thrown off. So that's the cool thing about this show, and I think that's what's fun about doing it with more than one person.
Yeah, it certainly can better replicate, what teams are going to be going through. What I enjoy? I'm a sucker for like beat writer mock drafts, where it's the same kind of idea where, depending on what publication, or even, Sam Farmer has done this for years with the LA Times, where, he's going to reach out to beat writers from around the NFL. I would do it on my previous podcast where I'm going to bring people on from each market, and you get a realistic look at the exercise exercise. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for what is going to happen here. And I will say, like, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of time spent on the phone, texting with people. So I've got all different kind of scenarios in my head of how things could play out over the next couple of days.
So we have 55 minutes and overtime, I should say. We have 2 ad breaks here. We have 32 picks to get through. So we'll be precise with the analysis. I'm actually going to take a page out of the PHLY draft show with Fran Duffy because that rapid fire approach was awesome, right? The flow was great. We were able to discuss a lot of different topics. When you and I were texting about the show, you were going odds. I was going evens. I'm cool with that.
Okay.
So you're up first as the Tennessee Titans and the first-year general manager.
And we are saying, by the way, that this is what we think the teams will do,
Yes.
not what we personally would do. And yeah, I'll take the odds. This is Cam Ward, quarterback, Miami. I think this one's in the book. I don't think much discussion's needed there.
Fair enough. So then I will go number 2 here. And we'll get to more discussion when discussion is merited. But I'm going with Travis Hunter, the wide receiver cornerback from Colorado. And I'm going wide receiver first because I imagine that's where Kevin Stefanski is going to play him.
Yeah, I think that he came out and said that very early on. I do think that this is going to be Travis Hunter. As time has gone on, it's become more and more clear that he will be the pick there. That gets us to number 3, New York Giants, and there's been all the scuttlebutt. Is it going to be a quarterback? Or will they take Abdul Carter? I think this is Abdul Carter. I don't think this is going to be a quarterback in this spot. I think Abdul Carter joins Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, and they have a pretty talented pass rush there, especially when you factor in Dexter Lawrence into the equation.
So just as a follow-up there, do you think that this could be a quarterback? Is that a smokescreen? Is that the Giants doing their due diligence? Is there a team that might want to trade up here? Or is Abdul Carter clearly, like, there's that drop-off after the spot and the talent's too good to pass up?
Yeah, I feel like because of the fact that it's not just workouts with Shedeur Sanders, it was workout with Shedeur Sanders, with Jalen Milroe, with Jackson Dart, with Tyler Shuck. I think this is we think that Shedeur Sanders is going to fall potentially out of the first round, and we want to have him prepared just as we would Milroe and the rest of that group there. That's going to be available at that point in the draft.
So we're going to stay chalk here, which I promised you a Cleveland Farrell. I promised you a Blake Bortles, but not yet, because Mike Vrabel, who's running the show in New England now with Elliott Wolf, he's going to go with Will Campbell here, the offensive tackle from LSU.
Yeah, so this has become the first 3 picks were starting to crystallize for me. I want to say like a week and a half ago. It is now like the more conversations you have, it really feels like Will Campbell is going to go number 4 to the New England Patriots here. So while it's still up in the air, there are whispers about Ashton Jeanty. There are whispers about Ted McMillan. There are whispers about Jalon Walker. I still feel like the most common answer here is Will Campbell. Harmon Membou, I should mention as well, the tackle from Missouri. But yeah, it does feel like this is going to be Will Campbell. So that brings me up to the 5th pick. Now, in my mock draft last week, I had the pick as Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State. The consensus pick, quote unquote, has been the Michigan defensive tackle, Mason Graham. My reasoning behind the Ashton Jeanty selection is I feel that ownership group they are motivated to try and get the most out of Trevor Lawrence, who they just paid a large sum of money to last summer. I think they hire an offensive-oriented head coach in Liam Cohen to get that done. I think he is predisposed to wanting an offensive player. James Gladstone, the new GM that came over from the LA Rams, he comes from an organization that is geared towards the offense. I think this is going to be an offensive pick, and so that's where I started leaning towards Jeanty. I've talked with people behind the scenes that feel like this could be Jeanty. There has been some late media buzz. I know that Adam Schefter had brought this up with ESPN. Todd McShay with The Ringer has brought this up as well, that Ted McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona, could be here in the spot. I think Harmon Membou could be the tackle. He could be an offensive tackle in the spot. That said, I loop back around to the way I felt last week. I'm going to stick with it. Dane Bruker and I with The Athletic both put out our 7-round mock drafts. We're the only people in this large sample of mock drafts that I have on a piece that's coming up on PHLY today, by the way, where it's looking at 60 different mock drafts over the course of the spring. Dane and I were the first to market with Ashton Jeanty going number 5. I'm going to stick there with Ashton Jeanty here in the spot to the Jags.
If Fran Duffy was running the Jags, would Ashton Jeanty go number 5?
No, it would not. I think that
because of positional value.
Yeah, I think so. And I love Ashton Jeanty, but I just think that there are bigger fish to fry with that team. I would probably go a different direction, but look, I get the vision behind it. You want to take some off the quarterback's plate. you're in a division that you probably feel like you can compete with. They said it in their opening presser that they felt like this team was better than what their record was, that the talent speaks to that in their mind. So I get the thought process there, but I mean, look, at the end of the day as well, I mean, I talked to somebody last night who made the point, was like, I'll believe it when I see it with Jeanty going that high. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes.
And is the sliding door scenario here is if it's not Jeanty, is it Graham? Is it McMillan? Is it Membou?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a good question. So if I had to do like turkeys on it, man, I mean, I'm probably only at like 35 to 40 turkeys on Jeanty. I would say that Mason Graham probably would be the second most likely, but I think I'm leaning offensive player. So Ted McMillan or Membou, I think would be the other players in consideration for me there in that spot.
So then the Las Vegas Raiders on the clock here at 6, and I'm proud to be the GM of the Las Vegas Raiders. Now you get to live in Vegas, which is enticing. Their facility,
Sure, okay.
Their facility is awesome. Okay.
What about living in Vegas is enticing?
I mean, first off, it's a tax-free state, right? Number one. There's a lot to do there. The weather's nice. The food's good. The cost of living's reasonable. So I could keep going on.
You get what you pay for there is what I would say.
What's that?
You get what you pay for there.
You know what? You guys don't have to come and visit. I'll come visit you because I love Philly. Great. I enjoy Vegas. It's a good food city. Yeah. There you go. Plus, Julia loves Paris. You can go to Paris anytime you want. It's right there. The Eiffel Tower is right there. No, but you know what? If I was the GM of the Raiders, I'm not leaving the facility in Henderson. That's the truth. I'm grinding film.
I agree with that.
That's what John Spytek's doing. And John Spytek, you know where he went to school? He went to the University of Michigan.
Yep.
And how can John Spytek, in his first draft as the GM of the Las Vegas Raiders, pass on a Michigan man who's the top of the board right now? So they go Mason Graham.
Yeah. So I gave them Mason Graham in my mock last week. So I'm with you there. There has been media reporting about either tackle or edge. I know Todd McShay just said on his podcast this morning, he thinks it sounds like tackle or edge. What I have heard over the last few days has been that they will not take Ashton Jeanty. You know, I've said that here on the show the last couple of weeks. I had a sneaky suspicion, and even like they did their press conference the other day, and like he was asked, the Spytek was asked specifically about Jeanty, and Pete Carroll nudged over and he was like, "Oh, like be careful." I just feel like it's like doth protest too much. Like it's like too much of a show about Ashton Jeanty. I do feel like this is smoke here. I think Mason Graham is definitely potential. I think Membou is definitely potential. This could be a Jalon Walker situation. I had heard corner potentially. It feels like a little early for Will Johnson. When I do my final mock on Thursday, it's not going to be Jeanty in this spot. I'm not ironclad on how I feel about it, but I think a lot of things are on the board here for the Raiders.
Now, I'm just going to give you a hypothetical real quick.
Okay.
So we have on our board, by the way, so we have it as Mason Graham here, but just as a thought exercise, you wake up Thursday morning and you see the report or you break it, however you want to frame it, that Kolton Miller traded to the New England Patriots for, let's say, third round pick, fourth round pick. I don't know. You name the price, but not a first round pick. Then who's the number 4 pick in that situation? And who's the number 6 pick in that situation?
All right. If Kolton Miller goes to the Patriots, and it's not, so everybody stays in the same slot. It's not involving moving up. Okay.
Exactly.
I would say, based off intel, it might be Jalon Walker at 4. I don't like that personally. I have heard that the Patriots have definitely had discussions about moving down. So maybe there was a team that would be willing to move down. Now that might be them trying to get Jacksonville. You know, they're worried about can they get Jeanty? Like there's all those things at play. It's a good question. The other thing is that I feel like they could very easily say like let's just take Campbell and put him in a guard.
Sure.
You know, I think and just let's completely shore up that offensive line. So I could see it going that way as well.
And then who would the 6th pick be?
All right, so 6. All right, so if they take a tackle or if they get rid of a tackle, then I think they have to go Membou there.
Okay.
That would be my guess. So that's a good question.
Fair enough.
All right, so 7. Everything that I have heard over the course of this spring has pointed down to 2 players for the Jets. And it's either Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State, or the tackle from Missouri, Harmon Membou. There's been some buzz lately about Kelvin Banks Jr., the tackle from Texas as well. I know that he's been popping up at some mock drafts there. From what I understand, I think that buzz is warranted. I know that there's been some media reports as well that maybe this is a defensive player for the New York Jets. Again, that would go against what I have heard for the majority of this process. So just in terms of the people that I've spoken with, I feel like this is Tyler Warren here, the tight end from Penn State. I know I gave them Membou in my mock last week, and it was kind of I was kind of 50-50 there. In the conversations I've had since that point, I have become more convicted that it would be Tyler Warren in this spot. So I'm going to go with Tyler Warren here to the New York Jets at 7.
So Tyler Warren going to the Jets, which means Membou falls on the board here. You wonder, is Membou the guy with the Panthers here at 8? And the answer will be no, okay? Because I don't think the Panthers go offensive tackle. I don't think this changes the Panthers' plan, but it could change some plans in the rounds thereafter or the picks thereafter. So number 8, the Carolina Panthers. Dan Morgan grew up in the Philly area, okay? Raised in the Miami area. They have a need for
your
edge
favorite
rushing.
GM.
What's that?
You're notably one of your favorite GMs.
Struggled last year. I don't think he had a good first year, but we'll see. We'll see what happens this year. And they need an edge rusher here. And this is someone who Brand Duffy might not take. And I don't know if I would take him here at 8. I actually like I like his teammate better than him, if I'm being honest with you. But I have the Panthers going with Jalon Walker here, just because of the defensive versatility. I think it's a scheme fit for what they do. You're hearing a lot of buzz with Jalon Walker to the Panthers. So Jalon Walker from Georgia to the Panthers.
Yeah, this is a tough team to nail down, man. I've had a lot of conversations about Carolina the last few days. And people, it sounds like, we used the phrasing earlier about in the 12 o'clock show about if the Eagles took Malachi Starks or a corner or a wide receiver at 32, they would grit their teeth and take it. It sounds like Jalon Walker is like their grit and teeth and take it kind of scenario here for Carolina, where I think they like Jalon Walker. I don't know if they love the idea of taking Jalon Walker in the spot. I do think that there's a chance that this is a different player, and he's become the consensus pick. Like pretty much everybody has been mocking Jalon Walker to Carolina 8 overall. I would say, I think Mykel Williams is definitely a possibility here, even with Walker on the board. I do think that there's a chance that this is Mykel Williams. I also would not rule out that it's an offensive player, whether it's Membou or Tet McMillan. These 2 players, Membou and McMillan, I've heard more buzz about those 2 guys anywhere from 5 through 12 in the last few days than anybody. So that's one of 2 things. One, everybody wants everybody else to think that they love that player, or there's a lot of teams that really like these players, right? And so I'm very interested to see how this plays out. But like I said, I've heard both Membou and McMillan with Jacksonville, with Vegas, with Carolina, with New Orleans, with the Dallas Cowboys at 12, with the San Francisco 49ers. Like I've heard across the board, these guys have come up consistently in a lot of these conversations. What does that mean for each? We'll find out Thursday night. But I think that there are a lot of options on the table for Carolina. I know that they would like to trade out as well. This is an interesting wild card spot in the top 10.
Yeah. So we should know we're not doing trades in this, but this is a ripe trade spot, especially if you're a team trying to jump in front of New Orleans right here. Because if you're afraid New Orleans is going to take a quarterback and you like the quarterback, you want to trade in front of them here. If you're afraid New Orleans is going to take the edge you like Mykel Williams, you want to trade in front of them here. So I actually think Carolina, a team that has a lack of draft or is still kind of working back from the draft capital they traded in that Bryce Young deal, is a potential trade back candidate.
Yeah, that brings us now to the New Orleans Saints. You mentioned the idea that they could take a quarterback. A lot of my intel over the course of this offseason was that they would not take a quarterback with their first pick at 9 overall. It is unlike them to trade back. I think it's more likely that they would deal up for somebody as opposed to trade back. But I think they are perfectly fine sitting and waiting here as the board is laid out to them. Now, What I have heard, it has changed over the course of this offseason, Zach, where I would say that early on, a lot of the buzz I had heard with New Orleans was that it was going to be a defensive player early on, and my eyes immediately go to edge rusher. I think Mykel Williams makes a lot of sense. I think Shemar Stewart, I think this is the ceiling for Shemar Stewart in terms of his place in the draft. Over the last week or so, that has changed a little bit where it could be offensive tackle. We know the Ryan Ramczyk news has come out. They were aware of what that situation could potentially be. So that's not breaking news to them. I've also heard that Ashton Jeanty could be in play here if he were to fall to them. That's with Alvin Kamara still there. He's actually drawn comparisons to Kamara, which I think that would be an interesting dynamic. But I kind of think here where I'm going to go. I've heard some names thrown out with this team, but to me, I think I'm going to go with Membou. I don't feel great about it. This is a team where I'm going to be doing some digging here in the next 36 hours to get opinions from around the league, see what they're hearing, because I'm hearing some names that are off the board. Again, edge rusher, they've got their pick basically with Mykel Williams, Shemar Stewart still available. I think that Ted McMillan, I've heard with them. I know Dane had McMillan going here in the spot as well. And so I'm going to take Membou. Don't feel great about it, but I think that this would make the most sense based off what I'm hearing.
Interesting. Okay, so and I should ask, is this Kellen Moore making the pick, or
no?
Okay. Okay. So this is coming
I think this is coming from Mickey Loomis, Jeff Ireland, the assistant. Yeah.
So we'll get one more pick here before the break, and the Chicago Bears at 10. Ryan Poles was hoping that Membou would fall here. Without Membou falling, offensive tackles always get pushed up the board here. I know this is a player who some people think could fall down the board. I don't think so. I think tackles go up. This guy is prototypical size, good film. I'm going Kelvin Banks right here at the Chicago Bears.
I've heard Kelvin Banks we talked about earlier with the Jets at 7. I've heard him with the 49ers at 11. I've heard him with the Dolphins at 13. I've heard him with the Saints at 9. This is the area of the draft where he's going to go. Now, I think that Mason Graham, this could potentially be, if he were to fall here, I think that this would be a spot where they would jump at him. If Tyler Warren were to fall to this point, I think they would jump at him. So I think the Bears are sitting pretty right now, with where they are at 10, where a player that they covet could fall into their laps. Ashton Jeanty, not out of the question. So, things are playing well for Chicago at this point.
You mentioned the 49ers at 11. We will get to that right after this break. I don't need to search for the read today. I have it ready. Okay. And that's because I was prepared here. And if you were prepared to have a good head of hair, the place you need to go is Glatt Hair Restoration. Okay. And why do I tell you about Glatt Hair Restoration? It's because Glatt Hair has been restoring and defending hairlines for over 30 years. It's no wonder they have the reputation that they do. Their proven results and experienced team are only a few reasons the Glatt Hair name has stood the test of time. Glatt Hair by Morgenstern Medical is not just about restoration. It's about innovation. Their breakthrough specialized Glatt Hair technique really does dramatically change lives, and it changes hairlines. The Glatt Hair technique consists of one-on-one care, a 100% personalized hair restoration plan of action designed just for you and your specific hair loss. They have follow-up care. They have cutting-edge hair loss prevention treatments. They have medications and more. Glatt Hair can help you keep the hair you already have or help bring hair back when you've already lost it. If you'd like more information and are ready to defend your hairline, visit GlattHairMM.com. That's GlattHairMM.com. Or you can call or text 610-980-4000.
And we'll now hear from our friends at Ashley, because it's that time of year. The sun is shining. The bugs are coming back out. The low prices, they are blooming. So spring into savings at Ashley. Save up to 50% off living rooms, bedrooms, and dining rooms, and have it all delivered to your home for free. Plus, you can get the long-term, no-interest financing. You can save on top-brand mattresses and get free delivery, setup, and removal. But don't wait. Spring into savings now at Ashley, South Jersey, and in Philadelphia. Financing with approved credit, minimum purchase required. Some exclusions may apply. See store for complete details. Hurry to Ashley, ashleyfurniture.com for more information.
So now back to the draft here. The timing works perfectly. We did 10 picks in the first third. Now here we are in the second third here, and you start with the San Francisco 49ers at number 11.
So what I've heard with the 49ers over the last couple weeks has been either edge or a corner. And so I think you're looking at Will Johnson, potentially a corner. I gave them Jahdae Barron. And I'm kind of following gut instinct there. Jahdae Barron, I think, kind of fits some of the profile markers we've seen from the 49ers in the past. Will Johnson, I think, would make some sense in the spot. As we've come along over the last couple of days, things where it's like, I think it's going to be a defensive lineman, whether that's edge or if it's a defensive tackle. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with Shemar Stewart here, the pass rusher from Texas A&M. This scheme is all about get off and explosiveness. And Shemar Stewart, while I certainly do not value him this highly, I think when you're looking at his pure height, weight, speed, his ability to get off the ball, he is a good fit for that scheme with Chris Kasurk, the defensive line coach, with Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator, where it's all about, again, just upfield explosiveness, length, that ability to push the pocket that way and get off the ball. I think that he does certainly fit there. I don't know if I love the pick, but again, kind of following breadcrumbs there, I'm going to go with Shemar Stewart, the pass rusher from Texas A&M.
There you go. Okay, this is a tools-up player for an organization that like looking at tools. So the Dallas Cowboys are on the clock here at number 12, and there's a handful of directions they could go. They could go corner, but you know what? There hasn't been a wide receiver taken yet in the draft, unless you consider Travis Hunter a wide receiver.
Yep.
And so there, I know there's an urge to look at the University of Texas right down. It's not right down the highway from Dallas and say Matthew Golden, but you know what? Ted McMillan and the upside is too much to pass up. So I am going with Ted McMillan here, joining the Dallas Cowboys, number 12.
I think that is the pick there. If he's available, and again, I've heard him up and down the top 10. But I think if he's on there at 12, I do think that Ted McMillan makes most sense compared to Gold. Depending on who you talk to in the Dallas media, they might say it's one or the other. The people are all over the place down there. But talking behind the scenes, I feel like Ted McMillan would be the pick here for the Cowboys. All right, that brings us to 13, Miami Dolphins. Everything that I've heard with Miami over the course of the last couple of weeks has pointed to corner. Obviously, we know, and they talked about this, Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel, about Jalen Ramsey and his want for a trade. So it looks like Jalen Ramsey is going to be out of town. I do think that Kelvin Banks Jr., the Texas tackle, I think that this is a landing spot for him as well. He is off the board in this scenario since Zach took him for Chicago. So I'm going to go Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan. I do think that he checks a lot of the markers. We mentioned on the mock draft, like cheat sheet episode of the PHOI draft show, myself, Bo Wolf, we talked about one of the markers for Chris Greer. He's made like 9 first-round picks over the course of his tenure. 8 of those 9 have been juniors from Power 5 schools, trade seat. He's only taken 1 senior in the first round, and that was Christian Wilkins. So I think Will Johnson checks a lot of those boxes. I think he would be the pick here at number 13.
And one thing I've always heard with the Dolphins, Steve Ross, the owner, loves Michigan players.
That's a very, very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Really good call.
So number 14, Chris Ballard. Chris, I can't wait for the Chris Ballard press conference afterwards because I always enjoy those Chris Ballard press conferences. And he'll be talking about another Michigan man here. This is the 3rd Michigan guy off the board so far. This is Colston Loveland. They were hoping that Tyler Warren would fall to the spot. Warren goes earlier, but Colston Loveland does not fall any farther than number 14 to the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I think that they very much want one of these pass catchers. Now, the question becomes, if Warren is going to go that high, and I'm sure that they have, because I know that they were involved in trade talks to try and get up last year to take Bowers, to take Neighbors. Like they wanted to make that move up last year. Do they view Warren and Loveland as like very close, or is there a big tier break? Sure. That will determine whether or not they want to try and make a move up for Warren. Now, getting up to 7 might be too much, and so they might be blocked out. So they have to kind of make that call. But Loveland here makes a lot of sense. You see a lot of mock drafts with that happening. So now that brings us to the 15th pick, and this is a wild card team, the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, they threw a lot of people for a loop last year with the Michael Penix Jr. selection. Everybody and their mother is pegging them for pass rusher. They keep passing on it. It seems like this is the year where they finally make that call. They're going to go with an edge rusher. I don't think I'm going to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to do it.
Going off board here.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with a different player. Only because anytime you talk with anybody around Atlanta, it's like, no, that they are very strict when it comes to best player available. Mm-hmm. And then it's just a matter of the problem with that for us on the outside is we don't know what that board looks like. I'm going to go Walter Nolan. I'm going to go the defensive tackle
Okay.
from Ole Miss. So I'm going to mess you up because I know
Yes.
you would love for him.
I was
to be
trying to
there at 32.
manipulate it to get to the Eagles at 32. Yes.
Well, honestly, your willingness to want to motivate maybe dictated me saying I'm gonna mess this up purposely for you. But I'm gonna go Walter Nolan. I do think he's gonna go. I just off the board, man. I just feel like the talent is too great. He checks a lot of boxes we've seen from this organization in recent years. Grady Jarrett no longer there. I think they'd love to be able to get some kind of interior rush presence. You can make the argument, the edge rushers, maybe the value's not quite there. Maybe Mykel Williams, maybe Mike Green. I think with when you look at James Pierce Jr. or Walter Nolan, Todd McShay has connected them to both of them as well from the ringer. But I think Walter Nolan makes some here for the Atlanta Falcons.
This would be the 4th consecutive year then that I have the Atlanta Falcons going edge rusher, and they don't. I did it the year they took Bijan Robinson. I took it the year they had Drake London.
Yep.
I had it the year that they took Michael Penix.
Yep.
And so if I'm wrong again, man, I got to stop picking the Falcons. But at what point are they going to look for an edge rusher? But you know what? There's a brilliant football mind sitting there in Tempe, Arizona during this pick, and that's Jonathan Gannon.
Yep.
And Jonathan Gannon says, wait, you didn't go edge rusher at 15?
Yep.
Look at that. Pow, 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 right? Is that what he said?
I think it's pew, pew, pew.
Pew, pew, pew. You know what?
There's like a Batman comic from 1978.
He's a lover, not a fighter. He's calling for his pals, not his pews, okay? Jonathan Gannon says, hey, man, if you want to send Mykel Williams over to Arizona, be my guest, because Mykel Williams is one of my favorite players in the draft, so probably one of Jonathan Gannon's favorite players in this draft too. He goes to Arizona. He's gonna love it there. Scottsdale, another one of my favorite towns to go to. And Mykel Williams gets to enjoy it. So I have Mykel Williams going number 16 to the Arizona.
Yeah, I have a piece coming up on allphoi.com probably later today. I would say where it's looking at the groupthink, like the crowdsourced mock draft, looking at that select sample of 60 mock drafts. There have been 18 mocks in the month of April, and Mykel, the most popular pick for the Cardinals during that short span over these last couple of weeks. I do think it makes a lot of sense. My gut tells me that they might have to move up to get him, and I did so in that mock draft that I did last week. We talked, Mykel Williams could go as high as number 8 to the Carolina Panthers, but that would then bump somebody down. Shemar Stewart, someone of that ilk. I think Jalon Walker. I think the furthest that Jalon Walker would potentially fall. I can't. You would know better. I feel like Jalon Walker is catnip for JG.
Oh,
yeah,
he would love
a player like Jalon Walker, and so I think either way, Arizona comes out of this with a front 7 player. I know there's been offensive lineman connected there, corner connected there, but I think that Mykel Williams makes a lot of sense.
I got to tell you, you got Josh Sweat on one side, you got Mykel Williams on the other, you got Jonathan Gannon on the sideline.
Easy,
man.
All right.
PHNX. Do you have a spot on your set for me?
All right, let's get to the Cincinnati Bengals. This is another interesting team. There has been some thought that they could go with a guard to kind of firm up the pocket for Joe Burrow. I know the interior offensive line is in short supply in this draft. If you don't take one now, are you going to be able to get a quality one later that can come in and help you? To me, man, like especially you paid T. Higgins, you paid Jamar Chase, you paid Joe Burrow already. I feel like they've got to start pumping assets into that defense and try and get that thing back on track. You've gone from Lou Anarumo, you bring in Al Golden. I think they need an influx of talent now to kind of help them out. So I am leaning defense here. From what I have gathered, talking with people about the Cincinnati Bengals, it seems like most people feel that this is either going to be a defensive tackle, a linebacker, or safety. So something up the spine of that defense. I have mocked them Malachi Starks in the past. I think that he certainly makes sense. I have mocked them Jahdae Campbell in the past. I think he makes sense. But I'm going to go with defensive tackle Derrick Harmon here from Oregon. Now, there's been some rumors, some media reports in the last 24 hours about a potential knee issue with Derrick Harmon. Could that cause him to fall? I could say the same thing about Jahdae Campbell and his shoulder surgery. Could that cause him to fall? But I'm going to go with the Oregon defensive tackle here. I think that would make some sense here for the Cincinnati Bengals to try and firm things up on the defensive interior.
So John Schneider going through Sheil Kapadia, his old friend Sheil Kapadia, who covered the Seahawks now with the Ringer. Just an outstanding job. He covered the Eagles too, I think. And he's
twice, I think.
Yes. And he's reading a piece from Sheil. And Sheil has this note From John Schneider drafted two-time Pro Bowler Russell Okung with his first pick as Seahawks GM in 2010. Since then, he has drafted 24 offensive linemen who have combined for 0 Pro Bowls. So you know what he's going to do here? He's going to draft a 25th offensive lineman who does not go to the Pro Bowl, and that is Gray Zabel.
Wow.
Okay?
Man, shots fired at Gray Zabel.
Shots fired at Gray Zabel. Gray Zabel, who everyone loves Gray Zabel right now. He'll join Trevor Penning at what's the conference there? The
Missouri Valley
Conference. Yeah, Missouri Valley Conference draft darling. And so Gray Zabel here goes to the Seattle Seahawks at number 18.
What's the name of that restaurant? Fargo?
Oh, well, so a good question.
They're not going to be happy with you.
Yeah, so there's Mezzaluna, okay, which is one spot. That's where Carson Wentz went for.
Of course, as everyone knows.
That he was drafted. And yeah, I really like Fargo. Good town, nice people.
Yeah, well, they're not going to be happy with you after disparaging Gray Zabel. All right, so that in mind, let's go to the Seattle. By the way, that's a football team, 2 peg down. They typically go off the board from what we come to expect. That said, let's go now to the Tampa Bay Bucs. Jahdae Campbell has been the popular pick here. Most mock drafts I have that canvas of 60 mock drafts since the end of the season. 25 of them have given Jahdae Campbell. A huge majority have gone that way. Just here in the month of April, 6 of 18 canvas mocks have gone to Jahdae Campbell. He is the big leader there. I just wonder with that shoulder surgery, it sounds like he might have to start the season on is it PUP or NFI? I think for a college player, I think it would be NFI.
Yep,
right?
exactly.
So he had to start on NFI. I wonder if that causes him to slide a little bit. So now the question for me then becomes: do they go with a safety, Antoine Winfield, a good playmaker, but has been dinged up over the course of his tenure there in Tampa Bay? He's one of the highest paid safeties in football. Or do they go on to continue to add to that pass rush? I'm going to go with the guy that I mocked to the Tampa Bay Bucs last week, and I'm going to go Donovan Ezeraiku, Zach's boy from South Jersey. Where did he go?
Williamstown. He's from Williamstown.
Yeah, from Williamstown. So I'm going to go Ezeraiku. I think when you look at the players that the Tampa Bay Bucs have targeted, they've got a thing for production. They like guys that put up big numbers. I don't think that Shemar Stewart is their cup of tea. And then if you look at body type standpoint as well, they just brought in Hassan Reddick, similar kind of body type. They had a lot of success with Shaq Barrett, similar kind of body type. I think you look at Ezeraiku, he's a captain. They value guys with high character. I think he checks a lot of the boxes here for Jason Light and the Bucs.
What Fran's not telling you is he's just trying to take every Eagles target off the board.
I want to make things as hard as possible.
So when 32 comes up, I'm in a spot where James Pearson's there, and I have to avoid all my urging to take him. So here you are at number 20 for the Denver Broncos. Sean Payton, twice in his coaching career, has taken a running back in the first round. He did it with Reggie Bush. He did it with Mark Ingram. And he said the other day at his press conference, you need to have a plan when you take a running back in the first round. He's going to have a plan for Omarion, and that's who's going number 20.
Yeah, there's I could see Trayvon Henderson being surprised there. I know that Zach Stevens, our friend at DNVR, he thinks that is a definite possibility.
He's plugged in. He's done a good job.
Zach's as outstanding. And he said they had him on visit when I last spoke with him last Wednesday. I do think that's something that's on the table. But Hampton, the people that I've talked to have said like the love for Hampton in that building is real. So I would agree with this pick. So yeah, I like that there for the Denver Broncos. Now we get to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21, and people say like, is this the Shedeur Sanders spot? Yep. Is this the Jackson Dart spot? My conversations about the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last several months, going back to the end of the season, has been that they are going to be in the quarterback market, but they're more likely to be on day 2 than on day 1, that they were not infatuated with this quarterback class. They know that they need to address the position, but they are not going to force it, especially after what happened with Kenny Pickett a few years ago. They are going to pick their spot. Now, they were not necessarily anticipating that Shedeur Sanders would be in play for them, but I still don't think that Shedeur Sanders is going to be the selection here. I do think it's going to be a defensive lineman. That said, I've kind of dried up my resources here. I took Derrick Harmon a few picks ago for the Cincinnati Bengals. I took Walter Nolan back at pick 15 for the Arizona Cardinals.
That one, aren't you?
But there's still one guy on the board that I do think makes some sense for them, that checks a lot of boxes. They've taken a lot of tradesy players. They've taken more young players over the last couple of years since Omar Khan has taken over as the general manager from Kevin Colbert. I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle from Michigan. This is a player that I do think that checks some boxes. get him into a room with Cam Hayward. I think that he could be a guy that could motivate and really get the most out of Kenneth Grant, where the film's not terrible, but it's just like, whenever I'm watching him, I just want a little bit more. I think you get him into that building. I think that they could let him see his upside there.
I was really trying to get Kenneth Grant to fall to 22 to the. It was so clean.
You can't get that past me.
Yeah, get Kenneth Green to Jim Harbaugh. I had the whole monologue ready to go when oh man, you screwed me up here. Kenneth Grant, good pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so you know what, Jim Harbaugh's sitting there and he's upset because a Michigan man just went forward, and he would have loved Loveland falling here. He would have loved Kenneth Grant falling here. He looks at his board and the Michigan guys are off. And you know who's staring him in the face right now? An Ohio State guy. Okay? An Ohio State guy. You know, Jim Harbaugh, two football guys, we think similar. Two of our favorite receivers in this draft. He's going with Emeka Egbuka.
Love that.
Okay? And you might be saying, why not Golden? I just think Egbuka makes more sense here for the Chargers with kind of the play style that they look for at that position. So Egbuka goes to the Chargers at 22.
I love that. I do think that they take a pass catcher. A lot of the asking around I've done with the Chargers, that they would love to get another weapon for Justin Herbert. So honestly, like even if Grant were there, it wouldn't shock me if they went with Matthew Golden or if they went with Egbuka. I do think that that's a possibility there. So I like this selection for the LA Chargers.
We are 9 picks away from the Philadelphia Eagles. And so while everyone thinks about what the Eagles are going to do, take a break and tell you about the people who are bringing you the PHLY Eagles show. So my anniversary is coming up, and I got to tell you, I was talking to my wife. I talked to her a lot, but
breaking news.
But she was out with a friend the other day, and she saw a friend had a piece of jewelry, and she really liked that piece of jewelry. And she asked where the friend got it. And the friend said, Golden Nugget Jewelers. And she said, Zach reads ads for Golden Nugget Jewelers. And so she came home and she told me, and I said, of course that jewelry came from Golden Nugget Jewelers, because for the past 30 years, Golden Nugget Jewelers has operated out of the very same location in the heart of Philadelphia. Customers from across PA, New Jersey, and even Baltimore and New York City have come to Golden Nugget Jewelers to find the perfect engagement ring or wedding band, or I think this was just a really nice necklace. Their staff is highly trained and dedicated to providing a personalized shopping experience. So they want us here to talk about our personal shopping experiences. I promise you, after my wife saw this jewelry, I'm going to have a personal shopping experience coming up at Golden Nugget Jewelers. They have a vast selection of engagement rings, wedding bands, high-end watches, fashion, and sparkling diamond necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and more. Receive a final cleaning and written appraisal on every engagement ring purchase. Golden Nugget Jewelers has been owned and operated since 1987, right there on Chestnut and 8th in downtown Philly. I call it 8th and Chestnut. You deserve an expert and the best price. Golden Nugget Jewelers, where Philly gets engaged. Visit goldennuggetjewelry.com today to learn more.
We'll now hear from our friends at Bet365, because we know, whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide. They've live streamed 780,000 events each year, and you've got those early payout offers across the NBA and the NHL. We know we're in season play now. A lot to get excited about when it goes over to Bet365. You got to take advantage of those early payout offers. Zach, do you know what today is?
Today is Tuesday.
Today is Tuesday, which means that it's an NBA tip-off Tuesday. We've got 3 playoff games, 3 postseason matchups here. We've got Bucs Pacers. I'm excited for that one tonight. We'll see if that series can level out. When you've got that NBA tip-off Tuesday over at Bet365, you can place that qualifying parlay bet totaling $20 or more on tonight's games and get up to $25 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions apply. You want to take advantage while you've got access to these NBA tip-off Tuesdays. If you missed out on that, you've got Slam Dunk Saturday a few days away. We know, whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
So you are on the clock here with the Green Bay Packers at 23.
Yeah, and the Packers are interesting because it does sound – look, they go defense so often in the first round. They've had a huge influx of talent. They never select offensive skill players. I don't think that's going to change here in this one. They just went offensive line in round 1 a year ago. I don't know that they're going to add another offensive lineman here unless the best player available. So while there is Zabel, I think would make some sense, and he's off the board here in this situation. Josh Connerly, I think, makes some sense for them as a guy that could play tackle, that they would slide into guard. I do think it's a defensive player. The question is, I've heard corner, potentially. I think Jahdae Barron matches a lot of the guys they've bought in. You think of they've got Keyshawn Nixon. They went out and they signed the kid from the Raiders, whose name is escaping right now, but both of them are smaller, inside, outside. Nate Hobbs, thank you. Smaller, inside, outside guys. That kind of fits Barron. So you would say, oh, they want to add another guy into that mix. I guess maybe there's too much similarity there that you'd want some differentiation. So I'm going to go with a front 7 player. It's going to be the edge rusher round. Me doing that read right before this pick doesn't really help. This is difficult. I am going to go. I mean, they've taken a bunch of Georgia players in the past. I wonder if this. No, they just took care of this position. It's not going to be Malachi Starks. It's going to be Jahdae Barron. So I talked myself. I went roundabout here. I don't think it's a Mike Green team, just with the way that they play. I'm not sure that Mike Green would be the selection there. So unless they went Tyler Williams, I guess he's a possibility, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. Jahdae Barron's going to go at part of the draft. I'm going to go with him, the corner from Texas. I think probably fits the mold with what they've typically looked for. I talked about why I wouldn't like this pick. Maybe they would trade down in this scenario, but obviously no trades in our mock. So we're going to go Jahdae Barron, the corner from Texas.
So my man Quessie's upset here, right? And he's looking to make a trade because right now he has a dearth of picks. He was hoping for interior defense. He was hoping for edge.
This board not fair. I'm
sorry, he was hoping for a corner. This board has not gone in his favor. So there's a handful of places that he can go here. Let me.
Can I share with you what I've heard?
Yes.
All right. So I've heard the safeties.
Okay.
So I think that would be on the board here. Harrison Smith on his last leg.
Yep.
They lost Cam Bynum in free agency. So I think both players I think would fit. I think Malachi Starks would be your Cam Bynum replacement. I think Imanwari is a perfect fit for Brian Flores. All the versatility. He coached a lot of these guys in New England that had that same kind of skill set. So I think both safeties would make some sense. I've heard Gray Zabel with them. He's off the board. I've heard a couple of these defensive tackles with them. A lot of those guys are off the board. Jahdae Barron off the board. So my gut would tell me this was how to play out, that it would be a trade down or a safety.
Yeah. Well, it's not a trade down in this scenario.
Yeah.
And it's not a safety in this scenario either. Oh. Okay? Because Quessy is a value shopper.
Yes.
Okay? Quessy he's this guy's smart. He went to Princeton where Coach Flynn coaches. Okay? And he has both a good scouting eye and a good data background. And he knows that when you have a chance to get a guy who could be a top 15 pick, and you get him at 24, it's good value. So he is going here with Josh Simmons. He's going with Josh Simmons because the value is too good to pass up. This is a guy who might be the best offensive tackle in the draft.
Yeah.
But falls here, and they have a really good roster. They can be patient. And I'm going with Josh Simmons here, 24.
I think that is absolutely on the table. They have taken some medical risks in the past. It's ironically enough, I know that our friend Brandon Thorne, his comparison for Josh Simmons is Christian Darrisaw, the left tackle for the Minnesota Vikings, who was coming off an injury of his own. Simmons has played right tackle. I was asking Brandon about this last week after a conversation with Bo here on the show. Simmons is a guy that could play guard. It's not really talked about because he's a good tackle, but he's a guy that could kick inside if required. So, yeah, I think Simmons would make some sense. That's good outside the box thinking on your part. Now that in mind, let's go with our next pick here. At 25, we have the Houston Texans. Now, they are offensive line shopping. It seems like it's going to be offensive line or wide receiver. Simmons is off the board. They've been mocked off into Josh Simmons. I don't know that they'd be a Simmons team personally based off conversations I've had behind the scenes, but they are connected often in mock drafts. I think they would love Kelvin Jr. Just saying all the talks I've had in recent days that he's going to be off the board long for Houston picks. They would have to move up for him. I think Zabel could be on the market for them. He's off the board in this situation. I'm going to go with the player that I mocked them last week. I think that he checks a lot of the boxes for Ontario. I think he checks a lot of the boxes for the culture that Ryans is setting. We're going to go with guard Tyler Booker from the University of Alabama. I think that he'd be a great fit. He steps in. He starts right away for that team that's remaking that offensive line on the fly.
Good pick there.
Thank you.
So the Los Angeles Rams now on the board at 26. They can go tackle. They can go corner. And those are kind of the two spots that I'm looking at. So I am going to look. There are some intriguing tackles on the board here, but how about corner where Maxwell Hairston jumps out to me for the Los Angeles Rams?
What if they trade for Jalen Ramsey?
Oh, okay. Well, then I would go with Josh Connerly.
Yep. Yeah. Connerly has been mocked to them a lot.
Yes. Would you have gone Connerly?
No. I really think it's going to be a pass catcher.
Interesting. So you would have gone Matthew Golden probably.
What about Mason Taylor?
What about Mason Taylor?
I think this is the Taylor this time.
Okay. And that's it. If you're an Eagles fan, which I'm you're watching this, you are, and you keep hearing Taylor could potentially be off the board, bottom half of the first round or bottom third of the first round, this would be a spot to look.
Yeah, this is one that I had. The Rams are a pretty tight ship. They don't let a lot coming out. So I think they are a tough team to peg. But I would say just kind of reading tea leaves there. It feels like a pass catcher. Luther Burden. This is a situation for them. Matthew Golden is on the board here in this scenario. I think would make some sense. I like that. But we're going to go Max Hairston here.
Yeah, we're going Maxwell Hairston.
Good fit.
What's interesting too is last year there was a sentiment that Sean McVay finally gets a first round pick, first time in his coaching career. He's going to go offense. He's going to go offense. And what do? They go the two Florida State guys with their first picks.
That's why I think it's going to be offense this year. I think because they were the other team, Indy, that was trying to move up for Bowers, Neighbors, and that group. But I think Hairston definitely fits that scheme. I think that would be a good pick for them. All right, so that brings us to the 27th overall selection and the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to go with the guy that has been mocked to them very often. I do think it's a Ravens type of selection here. We're going to go Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia. The ongoing joke is players always seem to fall to the Baltimore Ravens, guys that don't test well or, for some reason the value just causes them to slide. I think that Starks makes some sense. That would allow them to continue to be flexible with Kyle Hamilton, who they're getting ready to pay a large sum of money to here in the coming months. So I'm going to go with Malachi Starks. If they don't go Starks, I've heard edge rusher here as a potential. I've heard defensive tackle as a potential here, but let's go with Malachi Starks.
Okay, so that dream is finished for Eagles fans, hoping Malachi Starks will be sitting on the board at 32 and be, the line of scrimmage would get pilfered. Starks is there, and Howie has no place to turn. He has to take the safety. So that was a scenario I was looking at. Now, here's a pick that's real interesting for the Eagles, 28 Detroit Lions. And the reason I say it's interesting for the Eagles is because edge rusher is what the Lions are looking for. Yeah. Edge rushers potentially what the Eagles are looking for. I think they could be in the market for similar types of players. I had this circled as a potential Ezeraiku spot before he went off the board. Without him here,
don't manipulate the board, Zach. Stay true.
I am
the Lions.
I'm not manipulating the board. I'm not manipulating the board. They tried trading last year. Well, they did trade, but it didn't work. They traded for Jahdae Smith. Doesn't quite work for him. I know they're getting Hutchinson back. I still think they go edge rusher here. Okay. Now, if Brad Holmes called me up and said which edge rusher I would tell him James Pierce Jr. He's not calling me up, and I don't think he's going James Pierce Jr.
I don't think so either.
I think he's going Mike Green at this spot.
Okay.
I don't seem emphatic about that.
No, I think Mike Green makes sense. I think he definitely fits the play style.
That's why I went with him.
I could see that.
I can't speak to the with Mike Green. I can't speak to the off the field part. But I think from a play style perspective, just in terms of like the tenacity, the going hard every snap, that's what the Lions look for.
Trying to predict where Mike Green is going to go is one of the hardest things about doing a mock draft this year, just because of the ambiguity there with that whole situation. The other guy that I have a sneak on?
Who's that?
JT Tuimoloau.
Oh, that makes sense too. That's a good one.
Chris Spielman is high up in that. He's
Ohio State guy. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, Tuimoloau was his name, but I think Mike Green. He definitely played the way they want to play. And honestly, because I'm a little bit lower on Mike Green, like his overall upside.
Sure.
I feel the same way about Ezeraiku. Those guys, they don't need to be the guy because you
Yeah.
have Aiden Hutchinson on the other side.
Exactly.
So you already have like your 1A rusher. So them going to a role like that, I think is great. So no, I like that fit there schematically and for the Detroit Lions. So that brings us to pick number 29. That is the Washington Commanders. All of my conversations about Washington have centered around the cornerback position, where it feels like it could be corner. I know they've been talking with a lot of the pass rushers as well. I think this is a Tuimoloau spot as well. I don't know that he's quite like the movable piece that would necessarily fit with a Dan Quinn in an ideal sense. I think that they would love a guy that's got a little bit more than Tuimoloau. I do think that Tuimoloau has the off-field presence that they want. I think this is a team that is going to value character in a big, big way. I've heard corner. Last week, I mocked them Benjamin Morrison.
Yes.
The corner from the
Good pick.
Yeah, and I
What about James Pierce Jr.?
I think that I don't think this is a James Pierce Jr. team.
Okay.
I think that he's like the opposite of Tuimoloau, where I think that he is like for Dan Quinn, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be a great fit. I just don't know if I don't know if the off field it will match up with them with Washington. I'm gonna go Morrison.
Okay.
Shemar Revel is the other guy that I think like on the field he looks exactly the way those press man teams like to play with Dan Quinn. But I'm gonna go with Morrison. I'm gonna follow some of my reporting there, some of the conversations I've had.
I'm preparing for the My Guys section that we're doing on Thursday night. Benjamin Morrison's gonna be my guy at cornerback. I was thinking of him going underdrafted. This is a case where perhaps he's overdrafted, but certainly like that pick for Washington, that'd be a tough matchup. I mean, look, if my guy at corner last year was Mike Sanders still.
Yep.
If they have two of my guys at corner, man, I do love Washington. Great city. Whenever I go to DCA Airport, I'm like, juice is flowing. Like I'm Jed Bartlett in the West Wing.
Washington, D.C. or Vegas?
I mean, I'd have to go Washington, D.C. Closer to Phil. More. Look, I lived in Washington, D.C. Okay. I've only visited Vegas. Lived in D.C., but Vegas is a better place to visit. D.C. a better place. So the Buffalo Bills here at 30. This is a player who's been, mocked them in a number of spots. It does make sense to me. There's been a run on corners. Maybe they don't want to fall in this run on corners. There's more receivers on the board now than I anticipated. Yep. I wondered if in this scenario, if the Bills look receivers.
Right.
But there's just a lot of smoke with Trey Amos, and so Trey Amos here at 30 to the Bills.
Amos was a player, I remember when I studied him late in the fall, I remember thinking he's a great fit for Sean. I would love this fit here. I do think that they would be looking corner. I do think they were looking defensive line as well. My guess is if the board were to go this way and you had that run we just saw with edge rush as well. Brandon Beane's been aggressive in years past, like little short jump ups. I think that he would probably make a move up in this situation. Obviously, that's off the board here for us. So, no, I like that pickup there for them. And I do think wide receiver, like that would be like worst case scenario. Maybe Omarion as well. I've heard some buzz there for safety with the Buffalo Bills. But that brings us to Kansas City. Everything I've heard with Kansas City is Josh Simmons or a defensive whether that's interior or off the edge.
Could this be a Mason Taylor spot as a Travis Kelce replacement?
Potentially. They've been taking at that spot. They've taken tight ends on like early day 3, like 2 of the last 3 years. Took a TCU kid last year, took a Duke kid a couple years ago. That they're obviously neither of those players are quite as pedigreed as what we come to see with Mason Taylor. I wouldn't rule that out. I do think it sounds like Mason Taylor, there's some buzz that he can go this high. I'm like looking at the rest of the board here. I don't know if any of the edge rushers are necessarily speaking to me. I mean, actually, here we go. I'll do this for you. James Pierce Jr. From Tennessee.
Okay.
I'm doing it for you.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
That temptation is not there for you for the Eagles at 32. Let's go James Pierce Jr., the pass rusher from the Tennessee Volunteers.
So, you know what? Brett Veach nails another pick. Andy Reid nails another pick. Everyone's watching this and saying that, man, how did the Kansas City Chiefs land maybe the premier edge rusher in this draft class. I love James Pierce Jr. The reason I am filibustering here too is because we have overtime coming up, and I wanna fill this minute here, and the Eagles pick is going to come right after 3 o'clock. Just resetting the board though. You
I was
have
gonna say let's talk through the options here.
yeah. What do you think here? So you have Josh Connerly, you have Nick Scorton, you have the safety from South Carolina.
So you have Nick Manwari's
Yep.
there. Mason Taylor's on the board.
Yep.
We have Matthew Golden, wide receiver.
Yep.
Luther Burden, the third, is on the board. So it's got 2 receivers. Obviously, that's not ideal. You have Mason Taylor. I would think that would be an attractive option. Donovan Jackson, the guard from Ohio State. You mentioned Josh Connerly, the tackle from Oregon. Ariante Ursary, tackle from Minnesota. Interior guys are off the board here. Tyleek Williams, defensive tackle from Ohio State. Let's go. Edge rusher Nick Scorton, as you mentioned. Landon Jackson, Moloau are all there on the board. Linebacker. We didn't take Jahdae Campbell.
We didn't take Jahdae Campbell.
Jahdae
By the way,
there.
if you want to know who the Eagles are going to pick, you're going to have to watch us in
Give us a good one.
overtime.
That was well done. Very well done.
Welcome back to the PHLY Eagles Show, where the Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock here. If only the first round of the draft was this fast on Thursday night, we would all get home to go to sleep at a reasonable hour. That is not going to happen. So Fran just outlined who's available. Now, look, I'm trying to be theatrical here, but realistically, if this were the scenario, the Eagles would try to trade out of it because you have only one quarterback who's gone off the board so far. You have only one wide receiver, correct? Who's gone off the board so far?
A couple.
Or
McMillan and
okay,
Egbuka.
yes, yeah, okay, yeah, but yeah. So you have Golden, you have Burden. There's a few appealing here who are on the board.
Someone could trade up for Connerly.
Yeah, I actually think Connerly's the guy that the Eagles would like. Now this really I do agree with something Fran's talked about, Bo's talked about, Shields talked about, that if the Eagles go offensive line in the first round, I think they would want him to be able to play.
Yeah.
Just because, like, even though they think succession plans, you don't want your first round pick on ice for 2. I think they saw that with Hillard, right? You want to know at some point who they are.
Yep.
And so there is a school of thought that Josh Connerly can play guard. I've talked to people who think he can't play guard. I defer to your judgment. You think that might be a bit of a projection because of the strength issue?
I think especially early on that would be a concern.
Yeah. So if we're not going with Josh Connerly, the player, honestly, who I think makes the most sense for the Eagles in terms of fit, in terms of the play style, in terms of the organizational priority, we know there's interest. It's Nick Scorton. Now, I personally think that Nick Scorton could be a guy that they could get at the end of the second round. And that's kind of what, but in this scenario here, where a trade back or not doing the trade back, do you go Scorton? I'm compelled to think Mason Taylor is a possibility because I do truly believe that they like Mason Taylor. I think that you can make you can say all things being equal, you go with the edge, you go with the line of scrimmage, but I don't know if all things are okay. And then I also look at it too that how he can say the 32nd pick in the draft is probably it's not that much different than the top of the second round. So if you're saying you think Mason Taylor is worthy of a pick in the second round, then you probably think he's worthy of a pick at number 32. So I'm going back and forth now. I've pared it down to Mason Taylor and Nick Scorton. In this scenario, you're Nick Sirianni, I'm Howie Roseman, or you're Jeffrey Lurie, whoever. He's bouncing it off. The clock's ticking on us.
Yep.
What's your input?
Comment in the chat right now, by the way.
Yeah, comment in the chat. How about that? Let's make this democratic. Would you go Nick Scorton? Would you go Mason Taylor? Would you go the safety from South Carolina? And I say the safety from South Carolina because I struggle saying his last name. Emanwari. I don't think they're going safety this early, unless I think if Malachi Starks is on the board, that's the direction they go. In your mock draft, you had them trading back a few spots and going Scorton. Which way are you?
I think the better player is Scorton.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the drop off at tight end is probably greater.
Sure.
I would tend to follow the board, and especially since it's a more important position.
Yeah.
And I would go Gordon here. I had the Eagles slightly trading down and taking Gordon in my mock draft last week. I think I would go Gordon.
Yeah. So here you go at number 32. And maybe in a mock draft tomorrow, we'll be talking about him at number 64. But today we're talking about him at number 32 overall. The Philadelphia Eagles select from Texas A&M, edge rusher, Nick Scorton.
How are we feeling about that?
How are we feeling about this?
How are we feeling in the chat? I like Nick. We've talked about him a couple times here on the show. It's kind of a tale of two tapes. You go back to 2024 versus 2023 when he played 20 pounds lighter, had double-digit sacks. Honestly, twice the production, twice the efficiency when you're looking at like win rates and pressure rates like that. But he's stout. He's a good kid. He's young. He turned 21 until later this summer. So there's a lot to like about the Nick Scorton profile. I think taking him at 32, I think that's perfectly fine. Him getting to 64, there was a I was trying to find it. I had the transcript from Dan Jeremiah did his conference call Friday with media around the country. I thought it was in that conference call. It could have been on a recent podcast, but he said he thinks Scorton is going to go a little bit higher than we think. He looked at him as like one of those players that could go a little bit earlier. So I think him at 32 is a perfectly fine outcome.
Yes. Scorton to me, I've used a Brandon Graham comparison, and because I just think in terms of the body type, the playing style, Brandon Graham was a prolific sack guy when he was at Michigan, right? He wasn't a speed guy around the edge, but he was big, he was physical. So that's the guy he brings to mind. 20 years old, 21, one of the guys in the draft. I like Nick Scorton coming into the draft process. I think Nick Scorton makes a lot of sense for the Eagles. I think that's more of a second-round pick than a first-round pick. But in this scenario, 32, where we're not talking about trades,
All right, let's say the Detroit Lions say, we're not going to go with Mike Green.
Yeah.
Let's say they take Scorton instead.
Yeah. I think Mike Green's the pick at 32.
Mike Green's the pick at 32.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say that's probably fair.
And again, without knowing what their off-field evaluation is, but I do think, by the way, with you and Rich after Howie's press conference, am I kicking the cables, Julia? Okay.
It's me.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Sorry for the audio.
Yeah. So I was on after Howie, and I think it's notable that Howie backed off I don't want to say the hardline stance, but he was more emphatic when he was on with Todd McShay about sexual violence history or sexual violence against women. I apologize for that. Violence against women history in the past, and because look, Howie also knew the context for which this question was asked. Howie's a very smart guy, and so he knows the connection. He doesn't want to paint himself into a corner. I think if they had this emphatic hardline stance, he would double down on this emphatic hardline stance. I think the fact that he suggested there's more nuance, that that you're innocent until proven guilty, that Dom does all the research here, that they don't want to, they don't want to give away kind of their background for looking into stuff. If you read between the lines there, I think what he's doing is he's setting up a scenario for if they took that type of player, he has that out in his answer.
What is if the board were to play out this way, Walter Nolan goes up to board 15, you're not getting up to 15.
No.
What is the highest you envision them up to get a player that they would target?
24.
24.
24 to Minnesota.
Minnesota spot would be.
Yeah, and I think the deal would be 1, 3, and 5.
Got it. So with that in mind, I'm trying to think of who the picks were for us here in this spot. So we had Kansas City. We gave that now. So Kansas City wouldn't be anybody there. Minnesota, that was that
Minnesota was Josh Simmons.
Okay, probably not trading up for a tackle.
No.
Houston was Tyler Booker. The Rams, we went with Maxwell Hairston.
Unless you think the tackle can play.
Unless you think, yes, correct. Baltimore was Starks. We don't envision trading up for safety. We talked about Mike Green going to Detroit. Do you envision that they probably would stay put? It wouldn't be a trade-up scenario.
I think if it goes this way, it would be trade back. And honestly, I think there'd be a market for trade back because of the quarterback.
Right. I'm honest, man. Like as we get closer, I feel like there's a chance that the quarterback's there for them at 32. I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be taking one, so then it becomes a matter. It's the way I put it a few weeks ago is that it's going to be that game of chicken between the Giants, the Browns, who everybody thinks the Browns are taking a quarterback with that second pick. Yeah. And there's been a lot of rumors that they would target Shedeur Sanders to pair him with Travis Hunter. So will they sit and wait, or will they try and make a move up? How high of a move do they want to make? I don't know that they would say, all right, we're going to move from 33 to 32, but they will if they feel like they need to in order to beat another team to the punch. That's the question.
Yeah, and the real interesting thing about the Eagles here is that I think back to 2017 when they traded back pretty far with Baltimore that they had to trade back up to get Goddard. If you look at the teams that would be interested in quarterbacks, Cleveland, New York, and New Orleans in particular are right there at the top of the second round. Pittsburgh, you're trading farther back, so you probably take Pittsburgh out of it. But those teams at the top of the second round, I think you'd be more inclined to move back 2, 3, 8 spots as opposed to 15, 20 spots.
In terms of like team and quarterback connections, I will say, like, based off what I've heard, Cleveland, it's been Shedeur and Milroe. Mm-hmm. The Giants, it's been Shedeur and Milroe. Oh, I've heard some Dart, but I've heard more Milroe.
I've been seeing the Giants reporter giving some Dart intel this week.
The Giants are the local core there. Yeah. They have been smokescreen more in recent years. That's a group that I track everybody, but that is a group. Now, part of that is because it's a very large media core, so a vocal minority that puts out a lot of stuff. But the Saints, it's Dart and Shuck, not Shedeur. Who are the other teams there? I gave the
Steelers.
The Steelers not two.
Yeah.
So the Steelers don't have a second round pick, and so I think they're
more compelled to trade down and take a quarterback a little later.
Yeah, if they're going to do it.
Yeah.
The other team that I wonder about, and I gave Jalen Milroe inside the top 50 to the Indianapolis Colts last week in my 7-round mock, and I wonder if that's a sneaky team as well. So,
even after getting Daniel Jones.
Maybe the value too good to pass up there, but. Yeah, it's fascinating to see this play out, man.
Now, before we wrap up, which of my picks do you think is least likely? I feel like the Maxwell Hairston for the Rams were a little skeptical.
That was just because I like the scheme fit there. Okay. I think that he checks a lot of the boxes. It feels like that's a team that might make that move for Jalen Ramsey, bring him back into the fold. They've done that a lot recently, where they've got brought back guys that they've had in the past. So I could definitely see that. I just really feel like a pass catcher for the Rams, and so. So yeah, that's that would be the one. Honestly, I thought everything was pretty realistic.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I do think obviously we in a situation where there's trades, I don't think 3 quarterbacks. I don't think only 1 quarterback goes in the first round. I think there's going to be quarterbacks who go the bottom third of the first round from teams trading up or teams maybe trading back a little bit too. So that's kind of the unrealistic part here. But yeah, there's nothing now. Benjamin Morrison did go higher than I thought, but you have intel that Washington's interested in him. I would say to the Atlanta Braves, Barry Fontenot, like at some point you need someone to rush the quarterback from the edge, man. But
Abraham was a long time ago.
Yeah, best player available. This was fun. I enjoyed this. We need to add this as an annual PHLY Eagles staple.
I think we can do that. We have to give it some kind of fun bird pun, I guess, that we don't. But maybe Bo can come up with something for us to do.
If there's anything Bo can come up with, it's a bird pun name. But I also know that Bo will never do something that's not his idea. So I can't imagine. No, maybe Bo's not watching today, and so
I would say he is definitely not watching today.
Yeah. So then perhaps he doesn't realize that we did this. Comes his idea next year. We will find out from Bo on Thursday night if he watched this or not. But before then, tune in tomorrow where you can find out our 7-round mock drafts, where you can see if Nick Scorton's available at 64. You can see, is Walter Nolan available at 32? Is it Donovan Ezeraiku? It's going to be a fun conversation. Then you can check out all Fran Duffy's coverage of the draft, including the mock draft
the crowdsource. Yeah. So basically, I took a sample of 60 mock drafts since the start of the offseason, but then it's hyper focused on the 18 since April 1st. And honestly, I could have waited even longer to do this because we know there's going to be a lot of mock. Jeremiah's got his final mock. Brooks got his final mock. All coming in the next 48 hours. But I wanted to get it to you fast. So it's a breakdown of where the trends are pointing to with all of these players at every single selection leading up to the Eagles pick, including the Eagles pick. So you want to make sure you check that out. That'll be coming up soon on allphly.com. I've got my final big board coming out tomorrow on allphly.com as well. And then we've also got my final mock draft that'll be out Thursday morning on allphly.com. So now's the best time. Be a diehard. Take advantage of the sale.
Yeah, $36 for a year. It's worth it just for France coverage, but you get all our coverage too. I'm going to let you look. You've watched 74 minutes of this, 75 minutes of this, so I'm going to let you in on a secret. Okay, all the markets in All City, there's a little competition. We get updated daily. We see who gets the most subscriptions. Philadelphia is winning right now. I don't want to lose to Chicago, to Denver, to Dallas, to Phoenix.
Well, you know who caught up recently? It was like biting.
Dallas, yeah.
Dallas is right behind. So if you're going to let Dallas, you're going to let DLS pass.
Yes.
That's on you. I don't know what to tell you. So if you were listening to this point in the show and you are not a diehard, this is on you if we lose this competition.
Exactly. So there you go. And you can read Bo Wolf's name guide. It's worth it for that. I mean, I would spend $36. So. There were a few laugh out. I know for a fact Joy was laughing when she read that, okay? Because Joy laughs at all of Bo's jokes. I was supposed to have something today, 36 thoughts on the draft. Instead, what happened is the Eagles signed Cam Jurgens. So I have 7 thoughts on the Cam Jurgens signing. I will have 36 Eagles draft thoughts. I will also have my 7-round mock draft. That will come out tomorrow. And then our Phillies coverage now has Bob Cooney. I bring this up as a way of saying, subscribe now. Don't wait. Allphly.com. Julia, as always, outstanding job producing. Fran, the best draft insider in the business. I'm Zach Berman. Bo will say, as always, we love you. I'll say we'll be better tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
We all silly like the mayor.